There's way too much light. Way too much light. That's right. We're going to talk about the films of Walter, who was one of the characters in the television series. I didn't even write it up here. I got room right here. You can see I got my whiteboard. I'm writing a television series called Linoleum Blownapart. There's too much glare in here. I'm in a different office completely. Okay. I hope you can see this. I think I did it before and you guys could see it fine. Okay, so it's called Linoleum Blownapart. I might as well write it down. You guys with me on this? Thank you. So that way it's solidified. And these are the midnight movies that Walter makes, okay? And the mess that I make with my marker. My eye line's off, everything's off. Sorry, guys. Boy, this was supposed to be a really good episode. I hope you guys hang with it. So I'm based and pilled, and like a lot of people, wondering what to make my video channel about and what to do. I'm in my 50s, what to do later on in my life. And what I decided to do was to create a television series called Linoleum Blownapart. I started this in 2022, just taking notes and freeforming, spitballing, I guess they call it. And so by 2023, I had the basics of this, but I didn't know what I was doing. And it all just kind of fell together. It's called Linoleum Blownapart. It's about an 80s punk rock band who the archetypes we already have. It's Adamant and Darby Crash. Okay? And by the way, these cops who hassle people, what they want you to do is to make your show about them. And then you start running around these cops and you start pointing at them with your phone and you start, they're hassling me. And then your show starts becoming about these plainclothes police officers. Okay, so in lieu of that, I don't know if you guys know this, there's a guy named David Strouder from Detroit. He was in a band called Majesty Crush. He was murdered by the police right here in Los Angeles. You could look into that yourself. They ran the same op on me. They were expecting me to die. And people I know were involved in this. So it includes my wife. It includes the drummer of the grievance committee. I talk about these people every show. You're not getting away with it. They were using the Facebook app to deny people sleep. And they can do much worse than that. So in light of all this, which I'll talk about anytime, anywhere, that's my motto, I decided to create a television series. And that's what this is. I have the original music that goes with it, and I'd like to apologize to, what was it called? I can't even remember it now. What was that? Daisy and the Six. I always bring up Daisy and the Six. Well, Daisy and the Six was it was a book. Okay, I don't believe there's any music attached to it. Okay, and so once they attached music to it, they got like one of the Mumford Sons to do the music. Okay, so these songs cost upwards of $10,000 or more. So within the budget here, which we have the template, I'm a HBO man. This is inspired by David Chase's Not Fade Away, the rock and roll from The Sopranos, the archetypes from The Sopranos, right? So we have the same archetypes here. We have Walter growing up in a fascist country in the 40s. And don't forget, my friend Jose Luis, he just worked with Terry Gilliam. So if you got a beef with me here in West Hollywood or whatever your Fed rat problem is, I can always go overseas. I could go to Japan and I could go to Spain. They were fascist countries as well. So this could play pretty well over there. So again, there was no playbook when I wrote an entire album worth of songs by the age of 25. I dare any of you to go ahead and contribute in the comment section if you've done the same. The only thing I got was targeted and attacked by people who've never done that. They've never worked for MTV and been on television and stuff like that. I did, and I did it in the 90s. And I don't need my family's approval or their admiration. And I certainly don't need anybody from Michigan's. Okay? That being said, don't forget, anytime, anywhere. So we have these archetypes, and they exist. And the whole point about Linoleum Blownapart, which is available on Kindle, you can read it for free. If you want, I'll send you a copy. Is these two characters. And are they going to meet? Now, don't forget, he's got the same birthday as Napoleon, but 200 years later. So he's born in 69, so he's going to be in the 27 club. He's approaching the 27 club. Walter is going to be close to 80 years old. So they're both going to be alive. They could both meet. Do you see? You see how epic this is? And so this is what the audience is going to be wanting to know and to understand. Are they going to meet? It's just one of the things that they're going to be wrapped up into. Okay? So you have 80s punk rock. Where's right here? Yeah. Here. You've got 80s punk rock, and you have these midnight movies. Okay? In case you don't know, in the 1980s, we used to go see midnight movies. We had the VCR culture coming out, right? And so we would watch and we would study these films. But you have to get permission to use Fellini's films and to use Pasolini's films and to use Jean-Luc Godard films. Okay? You have to pay money for that. You have to pay money to... listen to anything on Clay Records, Cherry Records. Was it Cherry Red Records? Any of the D-beat, hardcore, punk rock. Like, you would need to get permission for all this stuff. And you would have to pay for it. Okay? What I'm offering is this. You don't have to pay for anything. And the best part is, we're going to have 7 different directors directing each one of these films. Now let's get to the films. So these are the midnight movies. Sorry, I got to do everything ad hoc, post hoc, and hoc too. No, we don't want to get into that too much. But anyways, I didn't do an episode for a while because I was sick. So I'm not going to do an episode sick. I'm listening to Sam Tripoli, and he's like, his throat is gone. Nobody wants to hear that shit, bro. If you're sick, don't do a fucking show. If you're high, drunk, or stoned, don't do a fucking show. Nobody wants to hear your stoner talk. And so I don't do that either. I come in jacked on caffeine now. Ready to go. Yeah. I got another channel. It's called Fallen Angelinos. I'm going to start putting a little bit more content on there, if I can. Originally, it was supposed to be about homelessness. A lot of that stuff is played out. A lot of it's cliche. I could walk through MacArthur Park, around that area, and I could get 17,000 views on my video. Okay? Again, with Linoleum Blownapart, that's not what I'm about. When I was in a punk rock band, again, there was no manual. We just went out there and did it, and a lot of times we were doing shows and I was screaming into the abyss, man. Okay? So I'm writing songs and no, I'm not getting any reaction from these songs. But yet some band goes on stage and fucking, dances around, and there's the audience goes crazy. There's nothing you can do about it. And again, I didn't know anything about gatekeeping and, that kind of stuff. And that was what was going on in Michigan. Make no mistake about it. And that's why when I went back there, well, anyways, I'll get into all that some other time. I think if you guys have watched my show, you'll understand that, what I'm talking about. And it's pretty nasty when your friends turn on you. It's nasty business. And there's no coming back from it. I want to make sure that you guys understand that. So Walter is the filmmaker. And his first film is called Of Reasonable Service. It comes out in 1944. Now, this is a sleeper hit. The war is over in 1945. So it's just sitting there in the theater. And, it is what it is. you'll have to read the treatment that I put on Kindle to kind of catch you up to speed. I'm just going over the films right now. And Of Reasonable Service is from Romans 12. It is from the Bible. And it's about your duty, it's about your service. And this is about an American ambulance driver who saves a woman and her brother. Her brother's a rocketeer. He's building rockets, and which are not used for war. They're used for space. Well, they're speculating that they're going to be used for space exploration. So it has nothing to do with war at the time. So he saves the brother. The brother's in a wheelchair, like Dr. Strangelove. The brother will come back during Scorpius XL, the 5th film. And that's an Easter egg to that. That's my little line. Beep. See, the brother will be coming back, the brother character. Okay? So, much like Peter Sellers. Okay? So that's one of the Easter eggs in the film. So, unlike Daisy and the Six, you get all my music, and you have these 7 films. And these 7 films are to be shot by 7 different directors. Okay? I'll have a list of directors maybe in the comments or something. Right? You're talking about your Roman Coppola, Wes Anderson, people like that. Anyone else who's interested in this. So that's the point. And then the television show, each episode is going to be obviously directed by somebody. And it's an ode to the midnight movies. And these are the midnight movies. And so Of Reasonable Service is about an ambulance driver. Well, he gets sent home. I urge you to check out The Razor's Edge by Bill Murray. I think Bill Murray's too old to be canceled. They're trying to cancel Bill Murray because he's an alcoholic and he came up in a different time. He likes pushing people around and getting nasty with women and stuff like that. I lived during that era. I understand it. Okay? I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying you have to understand people from different eras. And they also have to chill the F out, right? They have to understand that the zeitgeist has changed. And so your behaviors have to change and stuff like that. So anyway, but check out The Razor's Edge. He was able to do that film. It's really influential on this first film, Of Reasonable Service, for me personally. Just writing it, the treatments going on Kindle with all my other writing. Okay, and so he gets sent home, and he keeps pining for this woman, and the woman's brother gets seduced. She gets seduced, but he gets seduced for the money for his rocket club. And the money comes from the fascist regime that's coming in. Okay? So, right, one of the fascist dictator, the one who's working for the fascist dictator, comes in and starts bankrolling the brother falling in love with the sister. But here the American guy goes back to America. He realizes that his plantation representing old America has failed, and the people working there run him off because he represents the family who has all the money in the plantation. So he goes off, he becomes a bum. He goes all the way across the United States to San Francisco, where, he's just a washed up alcoholic. And he loses touch with the woman and her brother in the other country. And then he gets a chance to get on a boat and go through the Northwest Passage, which goes through the northern Arctic circles. Let's go. The North Pole, okay? It goes through the North Pole, okay? And so this is part of the epic story. And this film will be about 3 hours long, if we could do it like that. But if we have to cut it down to 90 minutes, each one of these films will be 90 minutes. Each one of these films will be referenced. They're going to be used as cutaways to go from one life to the next. Okay? So you got you got Walter over here. You got the 1980s punk rockers who are basically Adamant and Darby Crash. That's the archetype. They get the name of their band from this film, Bonaparte Bon Ami, his last one. But again, we're going over each one of Walter's films. And Of Reasonable Service, I love it. It's epic. And he goes back through the Arctic Circle and he hangs out with an Admiral Byrd type character. And he goes through that Arctic Circle and he goes all the way back to Europe. And he goes back for that woman. Okay? And there's an epic battle. There's an epic fight involved. Right? So it's like From Here to Eternity. It's like The Razor's Edge. Okay? And it's really a great story. I created all of this myself, and I did it through writing, sitting down and writing and working all this stuff out. Okay? His second film comes out in 1950. Now again, his film comes out in 1944. The war's over in 1945. It's still in the theaters, and people start piling into the theaters to see this film. But just like with the MC5, there's dope, guns, and fucking in the streets. They're going to be fucking in the movie theater. Because they're there to have sex. And it happens to be a great film. It's like, it's a you know, what do you call it? It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show. You got all these like white punks on dope, all these like these suburban kids coming up dressing punk rock, and then you got this weird film coming out around the same time that they could go to the midnight movies and dance and sing and throw toast or whatever they do. Okay? So similarly, you got people coming home from the war in time to see this movie. They take their gal, they have sex in the movie theater, blah, 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 blah. His second film, they ask him, Walter, well, what do you want to make? And he says, well, I want to make Porkchops and the Hoosegow. This is a black and white film. It ends up coming out. I only have the release dates. And that's the most important thing. 1950. It's a boxing movie. Okay? And again, this is more Kubrick than Kubrick. So you can reference Kubrick's films, just like in Forrest Gump, which they're getting ready to make a second one. I don't know why. They just want to keep using that same kid who's playing Bob Dylan. I can't remember his name, but yeah, whatever. I saw him in A Rainy Day in New York, the actor I'm talking about. They just want to keep using that kid. I mean, it's just, once they get a hold of you, it's just they use people to death and they gatekeep other people out. It's just, you know, I didn't know about any of this stuff until I went back to Michigan, and I knew our band was gatekept and like kicked out of the scene or whatever it's supposed to mean. Then the whole scene falls apart. So what point was it? It's really disappointing and it's really disheartening. And like I said, I don't need any accolades, smoke blown up my ass from my family or my friends. I go out and I do things in this world. There's no playbook, and I'm here in West Hollywood right now. So. And I'm pitching my shows. Now, I have a half a dozen other shows. This is just one. This is my main one. And I have a half a dozen other ones, okay? So you can see the myriad of narratives I have here. So, Porkchops and the Hoosegow, it's about a boxer who lives with his father, whose mother is dead. And when the house burns down with the father in it, the book the only thing that his mother gave him was a locket of her hair and a book, and then you see this burnt and charred. And so it represents that innocence. That innocence is slowly being lost. He's just a kid who wants to box. That's all. He loves his dad. His dad happens to drink maybe a little too much. The mom died. What do you want? Right? And so eventually we know how dirty boxing is, and so he hooks up with a boxing promoter, mob guy, and his Mal, his girlfriend. And then he ends up going to prison. Now, there's a murder scene in the shower that is pre-Hitchcock. Okay? And so this is what you want to try to come in with the Forrest Gump. Listen, before Hitchcock, like I really love the film Reds. If you guys ever seen this film Reds, I love it. They're interviewing all these people at the beginning, you know what I mean? They're all older. And so that's the same vibe here. And so they're like, well, Hitchcock got it from Walter. And that there's a murder in the shower scene there. Okay? So, sorry guys, are you there? I don't have a selfie stick. Okay? So, it's going to be a quick episode, trust me. These are the 7 midnight movies, the 7 films of Walter. And they'll be playing in this television series. Now, if you say, well, there's Walter's life, because he's going to get married. There's Lionel's life. He's with all these punk rock hits. Oh my God, and I got to keep track of all this too. Oh, it's too much. Bye. Bye-bye. We don't want you here. We don't want you here. You know why? Because there's plenty of intelligent people out there who can keep track of all this. We don't need to go to a Marvel universe. All Marvel is propaganda for little kids. Okay? It's just propaganda. War propaganda. Okay? So Walter is going to be meeting with these war guys, okay? So Walter's in Hollywood, and Hollywood's intrinsically wrapped up into the military-industrial complex. We know that, okay? I can't see myself. Hello, hi me. I'm hoping everything's coming out okay. We're at Porkchops in the Hoosegow, and that is a black and white film. And because this film did so well, his first film, his breakout film, they allow him to do whatever he wants, and he wants to do an American film. And this American film is Porkchops in the Hoosegow, about a boxer. It's in black and white, just like Killer's Kiss, right? And so you have all these cinematic references that you can talk about in the dialogue, okay? What I'm trying to do is trying to spark dialogue with the writers that have to be hired to write this thing. I don't write shooting scripts, I write treatments, okay? So his next film, of course, he's with the military-industrial complex now. So here he is. What do they make? Spangled Banner, right? Now, that means blood on the flag. And so this comes out in 1954, and it's about an American president who takes off on a lost weekend with the launch codes, the nuclear launch codes. And so it's like 10 minutes to midnight. Everyone's afraid, you know, at this point. And what they're trying to put into the psyche of the public is who is really in control of the United States? Who's really in control of these launch codes? Who's really in control of these nukes? And they're putting this in people's minds. And these generals that Walter hooks up with in the Hollywood industrial complex, they're like, yeah, man, we're making this next. See? Right? So it's similar to Stanley Kubrick getting handed the pamphlet to do Dr. Strangelove. Okay? So let's move on. Because that's a Spangled Banner. This is like, oh man, I should have wrote this film down. It's the film where one of the Quaid brothers goes off on a long weekend and they have to go get him. It's he goes AWOL from the Navy, and it's very similar to that. So it's very similar. The president of the United States loses the election, drinks too much hooch, moonshine, and takes off. Nobody knows where he is. And again, he goes on a murdering spree to make it kind of weird and funny. The next one is his fourth midnight movie. These are all playing at the movie theaters during revivals. These are kids are renting them on their VCRs. They're being played on the afternoon movie. Okay? Because that's how old they are, because this is the 1980s here. So this is where we're at. It starts in the 1980s to the 1990s. So we have Not a Sticky Candy Dish. Now, the Spangled Banner and Not a Sticky Candy Dish is written with Walter and somebody else. And that's a guy named Jeremy Cloud. I'm not going to get into it too much. He's like Alan Watts. Okay? He's an Alan Watts type character. Gordon Wasson type character. Goes down to South America, starts taking entheogens, starts taking psychedelics, brings them back to a 1950s Mad Men, shark skin suit kind of era, and nobody's ready for it, man. He dresses like Clint Eastwood working for Sergio Leone, okay? So that's who this guy is. And so their second film they're making is called Not a Sticky Candy Dish. We all know what a candy dish is. It's a woman's vagina. What else to tell you? All right, so it's a metaphor. Comes out in 1960. It's about a 17-year-old girl in boarding school who has to save her family fortune. And her family fortune arises from a catastrophe, possibly at sea. I don't know if it's going to be a Zeppelin yet or if it's going to be a steamship. I don't know. Okay? But it was supposed to be like the Titanic. But in lieu of everything that happened with the second Titanic, the Titan, I mean, this kind of stuff. Listen, if you have to go through NASA to go into outer space, why would these guys be able to go down into the ocean without getting quote unquote government, right? Supervision or government permission, right? Sorry, man, I can't see nothing. Trying to adjust the light. It doesn't make much sense. What you guys don't understand is you might be applauding the death of a billionaire, but what's going to happen to the billionaire's portfolio? I'm talking about the Titan. Where did his portfolio go? All of his money, basically. You think his kids took over his portfolio? It wasn't his kid's job. It's his job. He was in charge of that portfolio. Okay? So we can easily see how his billions could be pilfered when there's a sudden death of one of these billionaire guys. It can all get pilfered. I was the one, I knew that Jeff Bezos' grandfather was in part of, I don't know if he was part of DARPA, but I think he was part of DARPA, and he was in the Pentagon. Excuse me. And that's the kind of guys that Walter is dealing with. Guys like Jeff Bezos' grandfather. Serious guys. And so when they write "on a sticky candy dish," it's like, pardon me, but your fangs are sticking in my neck. It's like Polanski doing a sex romp. You know, like one of these silly sex romps. It breaks out the 1960s. Okay? So during the Spangled Banner, you're going to be introduced to a lot of Dobie Gillis, these pre-hippie types. I can't think of what they're, beatniks, pre-hippies. This starts coming in. So you're introducing this culture here. And again, in the series, Linoleum Blownapart, you're only going to be talking about these films. I mean, unless it's to say he's more Kubrick than Kubrick, etc., right? He's more Hitchcock than Hitchcock. So with Not a Sticky Candy Dish, she's a 17-year-old girl exploring her sexuality, but in reality, it's a metaphor for Jeremy Cloud's life. Jeremy Cloud comes from a Rockefeller-type family, and he exposes how his, like the Astors, the Bundys, how these families got their fortunes by killing other rich families and stealing it. Okay? So that's the big kerfuffle in here. Scorpius XL. Ugh. Scorpius XL is a sci-fi. It's his 2001. It comes out in 1963, right? And it's about 4 astronauts. XLs means 40. And they go out into outer space. And at the beginning, there's a Gus Grissom type character, and he dies. And so they have to get his replacement, and he comes on board. And they go out to the Scorpius constellation in the sky, the Antares star system. Okay, I'll give you guys, since you guys are watching it and putting up with me, thank you very much. It's a binary star. So that's part of the narrative, the plot. It's a binary star. Okay, there's 2 suns out there. Okay, so I can't get into much else. I'm not going to give you very many spoilers, but this is a great storyline. And so Jeremy Cloud exits, which I didn't put up here. Jeremy Cloud exits and enters the man who wrote Scorpius XL. Because at that point, he has to start working with somebody else. They're actually going into space. It's 1963. They need this. First we go to the moon and do the other thing. Not because it's easy, because I'm hard. Right? There you go. Right? This brings back the Forrest Gump bringing in actual archive footage, introducing it into this film. Okay, sci-fi film. The sixth film is called Clear Dust Jacket. It's a thriller. I did an entire little mini episode about that. You can look it up yourself. It's about a guy who works in an office. His wife has a miscarriage. So she joins a book club and has him send 2 books. They both are each reading the same book. The Spinning Plates of Borneo. I have all this stuff in my notes. Trust me. Yes, it's called The Spinning Plates of Borneo. Okay, that's the book that they're reading. But the book was published by a alleged haunted publisher. Right? This publisher was publishing manuscripts that were satanic. Okay, and so the book club goes back to this satanic cult, right? And that has nothing to do with the narrative. Well, you know what I'm saying? Aside from the narrative about the man whose wife has a miscarriage, he's out to lunch where she introduces the book to him. Hey, we're going to read the book. They're trying to save their marriage, and in walks the sister of his late secretary, who either OD'd or jumped off a building. She took too much LSD, kind of like Art Linkletter's daughter allegedly died from an OD of acid. She took too much acid, jumped off a building. So this is similar to that. This is 1966. So you're going into this bikers, acid, that whole thing. But this is a thriller. I really love, what's that Polanski movie with Harrison Ford? I really love that film. So it's kind of like that. But it's not that his wife is missing. It's that they're menacing him. The sister starts menacing him, and she's hanging around with some dangerous bikers. And so he's like, he's trying to say, whoa, I was just dating your sister. But she knows, he was having sex with the sister while he was married to his wife. Then his wife's pregnant. She has a miscarriage. So all this stuff's going on. This is really rich and heavy. Just as much as these. All these films, I created the narrative for all of them, including the book In a Clear Dust Jacket. This is like Eyes Wide Shut. Okay? And so finally, that leads us to ending at about 30 minutes after. I really appreciate you guys watching. I'll be working on this until Kingdom Come. Bonaparte, Bon Ami. Okay, so this is a Terry Gilliam style film about Napoleon. I told you a friend of mine, Jose Luis, just worked with Terry Gilliam in his last movie. I'm trying to think of what it was. Sorry, I got a lot going on. I'm trying to talk about this here, but anyway, you'll have to look it up yourself. But that's about Don Quixote. Thank you. My brain kicked in. So this is Bonaparte, Bon Ami. And this is the raison d'être. This is what Lionel finds out about in the 1980s. This comes out in 1969, right? The same year that Stanley Kubrick is forced to do 2001, and he's mad because he wanted to do Napoleon. And Walter beats him to it. And Bonaparte, Bon Ami is about Napoleon's friend. It's not about Napoleon. Okay? So I don't want to get into these foibles about Napoleon, what a bad person he was. Because we're going to be looking at Napoleon through his friend's eyes. And he's going to be nothing but enamored by Napoleon until the end. When he crowns himself emperor, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's against everything that we ever stood for. And so you have this alleged friend of Napoleon, all of a sudden, right, throughout the entire film, he's enamored with the guy. Well, what do you think is going to happen? He's going to try to kill him at the end, right? So that, and again, it's supposed to be a comedy, right? So it's supposed to be like Life of Brian, Bonaparte, Bon Ami. That's where Linoleum Blownapart get their name. right? When they start playing punk rock. The same way I wrote a song about Stanley Kubrick that'll be used in the series. This is a television series. You will see this get made. Thank you very, very much for watching. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll see you next time.